actually keep filming at the worst possible times, so you may not be able to hear me right now because I literally have the dishwasher and the washer and the dryer actively doing things right now. But anyway, I have filmed so much pre-revision prep content. I do not know how I'm going to manage to put all of it into a video and what I'm going to include, but just in case I haven't stated it already, and this is where I start the video, for pre-revision prep, I have been reading the book that my book is inspired by. And the best way that I can put it is my book is kind of like Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series, where it's inspired off Greek mythology, but it's placed into how would this happen in the confines of the modern world. It's kind of like that. It's basically, oh, this is what happened in this book forever ago, and this is like a future situation. So I don't know how much I want to reveal about that book that I'm reading. I don't think I'm going to reveal it at all. I filmed so much talking about me reading that book, but I don't think that I actually want to include it because I care so much about keeping these ideas close to my heart and not revealing them to the public, especially because I am so paranoid, because though I'm not very confident about my book, and I think that there are a lot of issues with it, the one thing that I'm confident about this book is the world building and the premise. I have never read, this seems like so narcissistic, I don't know, but I haven't read a book that does exactly what my book does yet, considering like the world that it's placed in, and I don't want anybody to take it from me. I don't want that to happen to me, and I'm so scared. But there have been situations in school where I've done workshops and stuff where people have found out about it. So I know it's not a big deal, and even if someone steals the idea, they're not gonna we're not gonna write it the same way. But it makes me so nervous. It makes me legitimately so nervous to the point where I am so scared, legitimately terrified. But regardless, as I was saying, for this for revision prep, I have been reading that book, and I have also been reading Save the Cat. While I've been reading the Save the Cat, I have had my notes folder pulled up on my computer, and I have been taking notes on Save the Cat, laying out the whole story beats, and then writing my own story beats next to it. And those that I'm writing down are either similar from draft 1 or they're slightly changed. Because plotting has always, through the past year that it's been over a year now that I've actually started working on writing books, but plotting has been something that has always been difficult for me to understand. I love crafting characters and character arcs and creating worlds, but actually coming up with a plot and having those story beats has been something that's been very difficult to me. Often with my books, it can at least with my drafts so far, it can feel like the book is constantly building up towards something, but that it's throughout the book it's constantly building up towards something, which is not. It should be more of an up and a down and an up and down situation, not just oh, we haven't even started the book yet feeling. And I know that that's an issue that I really struggle with, especially in the project that I'm working on right now, Project AOS. So I really, really, really want to fix it. But anyway, what was I even talking about? I'm going to work today on reading more of Save the Cat and annotating and highlighting that while in my notes folder replotting my book. Replotting is so interesting to me because the way that I look at story is that there are so many different directions that a story can go in that it almost gets me in kind of this multi-universe situation where I'm thinking of all the different decisions that characters can make and all the different directions that it can go in, and being just paralyzed by the amount of choices that I have as the writer. And then I get into like, oh, well, what would other people like? What would make the story better? What would I like? And it just gets confusing for me. That's part of the reason that my very first novel project that I was working on last year, I I got so paralyzed and just so caught up in my head that at a certain point I just had to stop working on that project because it was making it's like when you put a video I don't know if this is just the way my brain works and like an OCD like perfectionist thing, but when I get so overwhelmed it'll be like there are 1,000 voices in my head and they're all at like 2 times speed, like giving me a full-out headache and putting me into full-out panic mode. But with this project, the good thing that I've loved about it is that naturally the idea just came to me so organically. Unlike the past project I was working on where I was just struggling so much to just get it perfect and to get it right, this one, I managed to write a first draft basically pantsing it. I knew the general ideas of the world. I had read the book that I read the idea and like, I read the idea that this book is based on and inspired by, but I hadn't really intensely read it, so I kind of understood, but I also had to look up things on Google occasionally. But anyway, I kind of had an idea and I kind of knew the characters, but essentially I was making this book on the fly. I hadn't done a lot of the intricate world building details that I needed to do. I didn't necessarily understand the world or even the characters. I changed up something like halfway through writing the book that actually this character did know this character before, and I still don't know if I'm gonna make them know, like, be aware of this person before. So like, that being said, even though that book was so pants, I think the fact that I hadn't put so much effort into it made it more like, oh, this is fun. Like, this will just flow and come out of me organically as a writer. And I so enjoyed that process so much. It was just so wonderful. Everything about it just flowed out of me so organically. Obviously, with any writing project, there are moments where you have to sit down and sit back and say, is this the direction I want this story to go in? And those things happen. But the fact that I kind of had an outline based off the book that my book is based off of, it gave me kind of some confines to work within, rather than making it just so expansive and so paralyzing. And I love, part of the reason that I chose to switch up what I was doing and become a writer, and part of the reason that I love writing as much as I do, is the fact that you have so many choices. You can write in one genre and be one character and write in their point of view, and then completely switch it up, create a whole different world, which was something creatively wise that I wasn't really getting in my previous major, which was engineering. But that's a whole other story for like a whole, like, I don't know, meet the author tuber vlog. But anyway, it's just what I was saying. This book just flowed out of me so organically, and as I'm replotting it, I'm having to be so careful not to get too much in my head. And it was kind of happening to me last night. I was on Andy E. Sears and Alyssa and the Books. They did a live stream last night, and I logged onto their live stream. And like, I asked them this, I was like, how do you write a midpoint? Because I was actively reading Save the Cat, and I was actively annotating, and I was trying to plot out my book. And also, I forgot to say this, but in this notes tab at the bottom, I'm also writing any potential edits that I could make along with the Save the Cat stuff that would make it better as a story. But anyway, I'll talk about, oh my gosh, I'm getting so off the rails. What was I even talking about? I asked them how to write a midpoint, because I've been able to craft every other situation in my book, but figuring out whether I want the fun and games section to be an upward arc or a downward arc, and that determines the midpoint. Honestly, it could go either way, because the situation that my character is in, a lot of bad things are happening to them, but also like they're being kind of successful in their want, in achieving their want. And the thing about this book that I'm writing, there's not really a good set point, because where the midpoint would happen, they're still in the process of achieving their goal, achieving their want. So, and I thought about making it so that, like, for the midpoint, they get their want. Like, that is where they their get their want, but they realize that it's not what they need. But like, if I push the story that far back, I don't know what I would write, because that point I was looking at it, I think it would be at like 60 to 65,000 words where I finally get through them achieving what they want. And then I would have to write another 65,000 words. And of course they have another goal once they get that one. I kind of switch it up. The way my book works is the whole book, my main character is trying to achieve their want, but they soon realizes that their want is not actually their need. And yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. So they go about a different way in like the last 5 to 15, I'll say 10 to 15,000 words of the book, and they actually do something else to accomplish their need. So I was like, well, if I push that forward and I push them getting their want to the midpoint, then like I can't write 65,000 words. The rest of the story isn't 65,000 words. So I'm struggling because I'm still reading the Save the Cat and annotating. I think I'm about to go into, what is it called? Let me actually look real quick. Okay, where am I? That's always my question, where am I? I am currently in the All Is Lost section, and I know what my All Is Lost is, and I know everything from that point on, but like, it's just the midpoint. I'm struggling so much with it. Like the midpoint that I wrote I did all these points in draft 1, but the midpoint I wrote in draft 1 I'm gonna have to change, because the midpoint in that was gonna be the introduction of a very important character, but I want more of that character, so I'm moving their story arc. They're getting introduced to the main character in the B story section, because they are kind of the foil of the main character. So I was like, they need to be introduced earlier. Also, what I have right now for the midpoint to the end is not enough for the reader to get to know this character, or for the main character to get to know this character, for everything that needs to happen in their relationship. So I was like, oh, I'm rambling so hard, but like, I'm struggling, because like my book is kind of like a journey book. There's like multiple steps that are very obvious, that like there are things that they have to do to get what they want, and that should take off the majority of the story, right? Like that should be all of Act 2, right? So I can't have them get their want like in the middle of Act 2, after the first part of Act 2. And I know that they need to have like an inward change, and there needs to be some situation. I don't know if I should make it like, oh, they have a false defeat or a false victory. It's so, I don't know what it is. But this is just not working for me. Because I had the midpoint draft 1 be the introduction of the character, and the introduction of that character's want, which changes my main character's want and their goal, kind of. Not completely, they're still trying to achieve the want, but there's also something more added to it, which is good, and I like that. I don't know if I should just keep that, like, that's when they reveal their want, but they get introduced earlier, if I should make it, like, a whole, like, situation where they're literally about to die, and they're, like, on their last laugh, because that kind of happens in that book in my first draft too. I'm pointing over here because I have a bookshelf, and I got my book printed out with Barnes Noble Press, and it's literally like up there. So that's why I'm like referring over there when I talk about the first draft. But I don't know what it is. As someone who hasn't been writing that long in like the span of time, I didn't actually start working on a book till, when was it? Last year, not this year, last year in spring. And I didn't seriously start working on it till August, like actually writing the book, not just brainstorming. But plotting is so hard to me. It's just, I don't know if it's just like the way my brain works. Watch that I can't use any of what I've said in this entire video, because literally the dryer, dishwasher, and the washing machine are running. But what was I even going to talk about? I was talking about pre-revision prep, my creative process. Yeah, I'm in pre-revision prep right now. drafting. Oh yes, there's one more thing I want to talk about. The interesting thing about me writing draft one of my my book is a science fiction / fantasy, and it's a young adult novel as it stands now, but it's dealing with a bunch of really heavy topics, so I'm considering switching. But anyway, that's basically kind of as much as I'm willing to tell you about the book. But anyway, the first chapter I wrote of my book, I wrote it in February this year, and I didn't write another chapter till around June, July. I believe it was June. It was June or July, and then after that, it took me like 2-3 months to finish my book. I wrote the first chapter like several months later. I finished the book in a very like short span of time, at least for me. Like, I'm still shocked that it only took that long, but my book's like 70,000 words, so I mean, it's not crazy. But anyway, I don't know what magical feeling was just coursing through my veins that day. I had classes all morning from like 8 to 12 last semester in spring semester. So as soon as I got home, I had my free time. So one random day in February, I was learning. I had learned about this kind of. It was, I don't want to say theory, but it was like a kind of this. Well, I was learning about something, and I was like, wow, this would make a really cool book. So I write it. I just sit in my bed. I literally remember I was sitting in my bed typing. I wrote 3,000 words in like one sitting. I wrote that like I don't think I actually finished the first chapter, so maybe it was not 3,000 words, but I basically wrote what I consider to be like up to the what would it be called? Up to the catalyst, maybe? I essentially wrote up to the catalyst of the book. That's too far, but like maybe, I don't know, but I basically wrote the first chapter of the book, and I love the first chapter of my book. Like, to be honest with you, with my earlier project, I had so much trouble because I didn't know how to start the first page, but I don't know what was coursing through my veins that day, but I just sat down with very minimal thought, very minimal character planning, and just wrote this story, and it just flowed out of me so like beautifully and magically, and I don't know what was going on through my head because it just came out. I'm gonna cry. It just flowed out of me so naturally. Like, it was just so genuine, and I just sat down and did that thing. Like, I didn't stress about it. I didn't worry about it. I just wrote the book. Not the whole book, but I like just started the book. And I think that I really need to do more of that. Like, I don't know how I'm ever gonna make, obviously the first chapter's not perfect, but I can't think of any like big developmental problems with how I wrote that first chapter. I legitimately cannot. I've been trying to figure out, because I need to make my act one longer, and I was like, do I need to do a bunch of big changes? And I was like, no, because I personally love this chapter. I know it's not perfect, and I know some readers may, like, it's more of a tell than a show chapter, but in like a fun way. Like, it's not like completely all telling, but it's really from my character's point of view, because something happens in the beginning of my novel that's very traumatic for my main character. So it's just them going through that experience. It's about grief. It's them processing that grief, and it doesn't actually have a lot of character talking scenes. It's mostly them processing it. And I love that chapter so dearly. I love it so much, and I don't know how I did it. Like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna replicate that process, because I just go into book writing with so much stress, and I did very minimal planning, and I wrote this whole book on like, at least for me, I did a lot of planning, but because the groundwork was already set up on the book that my book is based off of, I didn't really have to do a lot. I could just write, and I could have fun, and I could be a headlights writer, and before I got into the next chapter and the next part of the book, I could plan and design the worlds in each consecutive place. And it was just so enjoyable. But anyway, honestly, I've been talking for 19 minutes. I might just post this. I'm gonna post this on my YouTube channel, me just talking about applying and revising. Ignore the things that I said in the beginning about this being like a continuation of my vlog, because I might just post this separate. I will just post this separate. I need to stop saying might. I know I will. But like, this has been so helpful for me. It's been genuinely so helpful. I also love Ellen Brock's YouTube videos where she talks about splitting plot into 4 different sections. That really helps me when I was working on my first project and I did not understand plot at all. I didn't understand all the words that people were trying to describe when they were describing like catalyst and inciting incident. I was like, what the heck does that mean? So her videos are extremely helpful. And I'm so glad though, even though I didn't decide to read this until I started my second draft, I would recommend not reading this until you've written your book. Because until you have a baseline and until you yourself discover what your story is actually about, planning the story beats is going to be very difficult for you unless you're crazy and you've been working on projects for a long time. Reading this after writing my novel and being able to align some of the things with the story beats and being able to change certain things is both very gratifying to me to know that I naturally kind of was able to align it with this, but also just that I already have a story. I've written the novel already. I'm not fixing the novel, I'm just making it better and I'm discovering what the story is actually about. So yeah, this has been so wonderful. It's been so wonderful. This has been an amazing experience. I'm not even gonna lie to you, like, I love writing. That's all I have to say. I genuinely love writing and stories so much, and I don't know, this is a sidetrack, but I don't know why it took me so long to like realize that writing was my passion. I was a sophomore in college. I'm a junior now. I was a sophomore in college when I realized that when I started writing a book and realized writing was my passion. But that's a story for another day, because I've always loved to read, but I got away from reading throughout middle school and high school because I was an AP student. I was working myself to the bone every single day. And I did that in my first year of college too, with engineering. But I'm glad I switched to English. But anyway, I keep rambling, but I have been like genuinely loving this so much. So if you just listen to me ramble for 22 minutes, thank you so much. I literally love you. Like, why did I decide to do this? I don't know, but we're just rolling with the punches. But thank you so much for listening to me talk for like 20 minutes. If you have any advice on writing midpoints, or you have any if you want to talk about your struggles down in the comments, I love to talk about struggle. And if you have any praises, things that happen well, slay. But I am genuinely praying for you guys and your whole writing process, because it is difficult. This is what I've learned about life. This is just me giving life advice, just casually. This is what I've learned about life. There are some things that are hard. How do I phrase this? This is how I realized I need to switch to engineering from engineering to English, by the way. Everything is going to be difficult. Everything is going to be hard. What determines whether or not you should be putting the effort and your willpower and your life into that thing is whether or not at the end of the day you can sit down and say, I love doing this. This is the most fun thing ever. Even the hard moments are fun for me. And at the end of the day, I genuinely enjoy it. But I don't know why I did this. I don't know why I rambled. I'm not even going to cut this video. I'm probably just going to make a thumbnail and post it. But just leave a comment down below, leave a like, subscribe if you want. I currently have 2 subscribers, and one of them is me on my other channel, to be honest with you, and the other one is someone I don't even know. So I'm rocking and rolling with the punches here. Just yeah, I love to talk to people because I don't actually talk. I love to talk to people online because I can't actually have a conversation in real life because I'm way too socially anxious. So if you want to have a conversation with me, I would love to talk to you. Leave a comment down below, subscribe, and yeah. Thank you for coming to my video. What should I say? Oh, because I'm reading Save the Cat. I don't know if there's a cat emoji. If there's not a cat, I don't know if there's a cat emoji. I don't know if there's a cat emoji. If there's not a cat emoji, I don't know, like, leave an animal? Okay, yeah, leave the alleged cat emoji down in the chat. But yeah, nice talking to you all. And yeah, see you guys in the next one.